They tell me I am the last Valdessi who remembers crossing that border. I do not correct them. I am the last Valdessi, full stop. Border is a separate matter. I was a junior record officer aboard the Surveyvel's methodical reckoning when we entered what the concession's geographic division had designated sector, Omralthesh, human space, in the older tongue. Our mission orders described it as a classification audit, a formality. The concession had not formally updated its human assessment in 61 years, and the Oversight Board had flagged the file as stale. We were sent to observe, to measure, to update the entry. We carried 6 vessels and 412 personnel. We carried no weapons heavier than defensive grade, because the file said we would not need them. The file said humans were a catalogued species. Understood. Contained within parameters. I have spent many years since deciding whether to call that confidence arrogance. I no longer think arrogance is the right word. Arrogance implies a willful inflation of one's own standing. What the concession had was something quieter and more total. They simply believed the work was done. The file existed. The file was thorough. A species that has been thoroughly described is a species that holds no surprises. That was not pride. That was methodology. Cross the border marker at a standard transit approach. Passive sensors only, as the file recommended for low-threat assessments. First thing, as I noted in my log, was that human space looked exactly as the file described. Wideband electromagnetic silence in the outer sectors. Beacon traffic on standard frequencies. No patrol vessels on the lanes the file projected. I noted this with satisfaction. The file was holding. Fleet Commander Dureth Ossel gave the order to proceed to the inner survey coordinates. We moved in formation, logging everything. I was good at my work. I had always been good at my work. The first contact came 6 hours inside the border. Not a weapons lock. Not a challenge transmission. A response. We had been broadcasting the concession's standard classification inquiry packet on the diplomatic frequency. A formality, a protocol, the file said. Humans had never answered in 61 years of monitoring. They answered. The response came back in clean Valdessi administrative encoding, which humans should not have possessed, formatted to the concession's own current documentation standard, which had been revised 4 times in the 61 years since the file was last dated, and which was not a public standard. Fleet Commander Dureth Ossel convened an immediate staff review. The consensus in that room was that the response was a spoofed signal, a probe perhaps. A captured Valdessi relay station repurposed. The file said humans were reactive, not anticipatory. The file said humans did not study their observers. The staff review lasted 40 minutes and concluded that we should proceed and note the anomaly for the updated assessment. I logged the anomaly. I logged the staff review. I logged the conclusion. That was my job. The second contact came 4 hours later. This time a single human vessel appeared on our sensors at close range. Close enough that our defensive systems flagged it as a potential intercept. It had been there, our navigator calculated, for at least 2 hours before our sensors detected it. It was running no active emissions. It matched no hull profile in the file's vessel registry. It was not weapons hot. It simply sat there within range, visible now that it had chosen to be visible, and broadcast a second message. The message was a copy of our own internal crew manifest. Name, rank, biometric classification code, every one of our 412 personnel, rendered in the concession's own personnel format, current, including 6 crew members who had transferred to the expedition. A public record of our departure had been filed. The staff review this time lasted 3 hours. I sat in the corner and wrote my log entries and did not offer an opinion because no one asked for a junior records officer's opinion, and because I had begun to feel something that I did not yet have a name for. It was not fear. It was the specific sensation of watching a document you believe to be complete develop new pages. The conclusion of the staff review was that we had a security breach somewhere in the concession's personnel division, that the humans had an intelligence asset of some kind, and that this was concerning but not operationally limiting. We would proceed. We would note it. The file would be updated to reflect that human intelligence capacity had been underassessed. I logged the conclusion. I noticed, as I did, that I had begun logging certain things twice. Third contact was not a message. The third contact was silence and a count. At approximately the 14th hour inside the border, the vessel that had been shadowing us simply broadcast a single number on our command frequency, 412, our full complement. Then it went dark. 4 hours after that, I was the only person aboard the methodical reckoning who had not walked voluntarily and without distress into one of the ship's 6 cargo holds and sealed the T from the inside. I found this out because I was in the records room, writing, when the ship went quiet, and when I emerged, the corridors were empty and every hold indicator showed sealed and occupied. I checked the bridge. I checked the medical bay. I stood in the middle of the central corridor, and I called out, and no one answered. I did not open the holds. I want to be clear about that. I did not open the holds because I had been logging this expedition for 14 hours, and I had developed, by that point, a documentary instinct that felt very much like the instinct that keeps certain animals very still in tall grass. I went back to the records room. I continued to write. The human vessel reappeared on sensors. 6 hours later, it broadcast one more message. This one was addressed specifically to me, to my name, my rank, my personnel code. It said in clean Valdessi administrative encoding, classification file has been updated. That was all it said. I brought the methodical reckoning back across the border alone. It took me 11 days. I did not open the holds. The Concessions Oversight Board convened to receive my testimony. I gave it in full. I provided every log entry, every sensor record, every transcript of every message we had received. I answered every question. The board asked me what I believed the humans had done to the crew of the other 5 vessels, the crews we had never heard from after the 18th hour. I told them I did not know. When they asked me what I believed the humans had done to my own crew, I told them I did not know that either. When they asked me why I believed I had been permitted to return, I told them I thought the humans had read my logs and decided I was a records officer, and that a records officer returning with a complete account was more useful to them than a records officer who did not return at all. The board classified my testimony as an assessment anomaly. They noted that my mental state warranted monitoring. They sealed the expedition's complete record under a restricted access designation. They commissioned a new file on human space. They assigned a senior assessment team to update the classification. I resigned my post that afternoon. I did not stay to see what the new classification said. The Valdessi Concession issued its revised human assessment 14 months later. I never read it. I had by then left Valdessi space entirely, which struck most of my remaining relatives as an eccentric choice, and which strikes me now, from the vantage of having outlived every one of them, as the only sensible thing I have done in my life. The Concession's archive still exists, somewhere. Under what jurisdiction and in whose custody, I cannot tell you. I know of 3 separate recovery private expeditions that have attempted to retrieve it over the years. I know this because all three expeditions asked me for what I knew before they departed, and I told them what I have told you now, and all 3 departed anyway, because that is what people do with a thorough file, and a clear methodology, and an institutional confidence that the is already done. I have not heard back from any of them. I keep a log out of habit. I have kept one every day since the methodical reckoning. I no longer file it anywhere. There is no one left to file it with.